would love to see you in the next room. You and Dan go over there and just say hi, walk around and shake some hands, and then she won't have to listen to me again. She's only heard me once or twice in the last 2 years.
Great.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your willingness to vote on Tuesday. I need your vote on Tuesday. I would like to become the nominee because I believe I have the best chance, and perhaps the only chance, of actually replacing Barack Obama as the President of the United States. I don't think we're going to replace an economic lightweight with another economic lightweight. My career was spent in the economy. I didn't learn about the economy just reading about it, or hearing about it in the faculty lounge at Harvard, or debating it in Congress. I instead learned about the economy by starting a business, and by helping other businesses get started, and by working in another business that was in trouble and getting it back on track. I've spent 25 years in the real economy. I'm convinced that to beat Barack Obama, it's going to take someone who understands the economy in his bones, and I do, and I will beat him with that understanding. I've gone across the country and met Americans of all different backgrounds and different dreams. And I'm more optimistic as I see that the entrepreneurial, innovative spirit of America continues, that it thrives. I met a fellow who was working for the city of St. Louis, and he decided to go off and start a landscaping business. And he's now got a thriving landscaping business. I think he said over 100 employees. I met another fellow who was in the advertising business, and he and his son decided to start making amplifiers for guitars. And they have a business that employs a couple of people, he and his son. I met another guy who, Norm Byrne, who has patents on his wall. This is at his factory. And he's got over 100 patents to his name in various electrical designs and systems. And he manufactures these things and puts, I think, about a couple hundred people to work in his manufacturing facility. I said to him, Norm, where did you get your engineering degree? He said, I didn't get an engineering degree. I said, well, where'd you go to college? Didn't go to college either. Just an entrepreneur, an innovator. It's part of who we are. It's the nature of America to have this innovative, creative spirit. And I've seen across this country and come away more optimistic about our future, not less optimistic. But you know what, a lot of Americans are really struggling. I've also seen that. We've got 24 million people that are out of work, or stop looking for work. I just met a person this morning who talked about the fact that he has a hard time getting to and from work, that when you look at his wage, and you look at how far he has to drive, and you look at how poor the gas mileage is on his vehicle, it sometimes doesn't make a lot of economic sense to drive back and forth and earn that kind of money. I spoke with a teacher that had been laid off. She said that she could take a part-time job or a replacement job, just volunteering and doing other things that would get her back into the teaching profession. But she said when she considers how expensive it is in gasoline to get to and from these substitute teacher positions and how much she'd be paid, that it makes more sense just to stay on unemployment. And so Americans are having a hard time right now with low wages, with high gasoline prices, with home values that are down, with job opportunities that are too few. Rockford, you guys have lost a lot of jobs here, a lot of manufacturing jobs. And so I understand that this is very different than what you were promised 3 years ago, when President Obama was then candidate Obama. And he said that if he couldn't turn the economy around in 3 years, he'd be looking at a one-term proposition. Well, we're here to collect, all right, because he has another job. One of the great overhangs over our future, and perhaps our immediate future, is the massive debt that this president's putting in place. He said he would cut the deficit in half. Instead, he's doubled it. So this is a president who has not followed through on his promises. He has no new ideas. He has no new excuses. And in 2012, we'll make sure that he has no new lease at the White House for 4 more years. There's one promise that comes to mind that he kept was the one related to energy. His energy policies, he said, would cause energy prices to skyrocket. And when asked one time about gasoline prices going up so quickly, he said he would prefer if they just went up gradually. Well, we've seen the results of his policies. And this is a president who put together a trio of individuals to implement his views on energy. And so we have the Secretary of Energy, Secretary Chu, who said he'd be comfortable with gasoline prices getting up to European levels. That's about $8 a gallon. Then we had Secretary Salazar, the Secretary of the Interior, that said he wouldn't be inclined to give permits for drilling even if gasoline got up to $10 a gallon. And then we have the EV Administrator Jackson. She was not given the cap and trade legislation she wanted, but is putting in place new regulation, the kinds of burdens on our energy system that's making it harder to get coal and natural gas and oil out of the ground. As a result of these policies, we have an energy output which is bleak and expensive. Now the president seems to have endured a election year conversion. He's looking at his poll numbers and not so happy, and so he's decided he wants to get gasoline prices and energy prices down. Now, if that's the case, it's time for him to fire that trio of gas hike individuals and finally have some people come in there that work very hard to open up our energy resources. And by the way, that open up our pipeline from Canada, the Keystone Pipeline. If I'm president, I will hold a this country to develop and make sure that we have a secure energy future and keep those hundreds of billions of dollars that we send out of our country to buy energy elsewhere, keep those dollars here and put Americans back to work. This is an election about a very distinct choice as to the course of the nation. We have a president who is comfortable, apparently, with budgets every year with $1 trillion deficits. And those things are adding up. $15.5 trillion now in national debt. We're aiming towards what Greece is experiencing, and Italy, and Spain, and other nations. We simply can't keep going down that road, in my view. My view is we must cut federal spending, we must cap it as a percentage of our economy, and we should finally get America on track to have a balanced budget, and that's what I'll do if I'm president. We have a president whose view of the economy is an interesting one, where he sometimes believes that the government can do a better job paying winners and losers, or in his case, losers, than the free market. And so he invests in places like Solyndra and Enterwan and Fisker and Tesla, who happen to have been, by the way, campaign contributors. And this, what this does is the very opposite of what he thinks it does. Because he has not worked in the economy, he doesn't understand that when government picks winners, they think, and losers, that the rest of the free economy shudders and goes into retreat. My guess is when he put $500 million or so in Solyndra, that there were probably about 100 other solar venturers out there that had ideas for starting up solar companies of various kinds. Guess what happened to their financing? When they heard the government put $500 million in one, the others had to find it a lot harder to get financing. And so instead of encouraging solar energy, he made it more difficult for solar energy and technology to be developed. This is what I will do is not have the government pick winners and losers. I will instead return to the principles of a free market. That's the best way to get the right product for the people of America and the world. You know his views on health care. His view is that the heavy hand of the government can do better than you can, picking your type of insurance, the kind of coverage you'll have. Ultimately, I believe the kinds of procedures you'll be entitled to will be decided by government under his plan. If I'm the next president of the United States, on day one, I will stop Obamacare in its tracks and get it repealed. His top plan is associated with a decision to raise taxes, the marginal tax rate from 35% to 40%. Now I know he thinks that's a good thing, and will take money from high-income people, he thinks. What he doesn't stop and recognize is how many people in America work for enterprises that are taxed at the individual level, not at the corporate tax level. you realize that 54% of people in America work in businesses taxed as individuals. And so when you raise that tax rate from 35% to 40%, you mean those businesses will have less money to hire people, to grow, to put people back into good jobs. And so the right course is not to raise those taxes as he's doing, but to cut the marginal tax rate, as I will do across the board. I'll also limit deductions and exemptions so this becomes revenue neutral. But I'm going to get that marginal tax rate down so small business can afford to hire again. This is about getting more jobs, not about punishing Americans. Let me just mention one more thing, and that is this. With regards to our military, the President has one place, from what I can tell, that he's willing to make a dramatic cut, and that's the military. About $1 trillion in spending over a decade is where he's aimed. And I hope you know the state of our military. Our Navy is older and smaller than any time since 1917. And our Air Force is older and smaller than any time since its founding in 1947. Our troops have been stretched to the limit in the conflicts we've been in, and yet he wants to cut the number of troops in this country. My view is to do the opposite. I would increase our shipbuilding from 9 to 17 a year. I'd increase the purchases of aircraft. I'd add 100,000 active duty personnel to the military, and I'd make sure our veterans get the care they deserve. And my view is not just that we want to have a military that can win wars, and that's why we want to build it larger and stronger than any other in the world. It is primarily to prevent wars. As Ronald Reagan pointed out, he used to say roughly these words. He said that he had seen 4 wars begin during his lifetime, and not one of them began because America was too strong. I want an American military that's second to none in the world, so that no one in the world would ever think of testing America's military might. So this is the battle for the course of America. We're going to have a president, if we keep Barack Obama, who's going to put in place more trillion-dollar deficits, who's going to raise taxes on small business, who's going to shrink our military, and who's going to impose Obamacare on the nation. This will be a president who, if he's president, will without question continue to encourage shutting off some of the fossil fuel sources that power the great majority of our economy. That course, in my view, leads to continuing American decline and difficulty at the pump and difficulty at the workplace. My policy is very different. I'll balance our budget. I will get rid of Obamacare. I will take advantage of our energy resources and pull those dollars back into the United States of America. I'll keep America's military second to none in the world. That's the course we have. That's the choice we have. This is an election of a critical choice between two very different contrasts. I believe to win it, and we need to have someone who understands how this economy works, having lived in it. There's some other good folks that are running. Senator Santorum, Speaker Gingrich. They spent their life in Washington. Nothing wrong with that. Washington's a great place. It's got too many politicians. You see, the problem is they go there and stay there. I would think they go there and then, even if they don't get reelected, they stay there. And my view is, we ought to go, serve, and then go home. And get a job again and understand how the economy works. So I spend my life in the real world. And I want to go to Washington and bring that kind of real world experience. So these guys have spent their life in Washington. I don't think a Washington politician, someone who spent their life there, someone who knows the economy, not having lived it as I have, will be able to successfully stand up to Barack Obama and present the kind of contrast that you have to present to be able to replace it. I don't think we're going to replace an economic lightweight with another economic lightweight. And I'm not a lightweight when it comes to the economy. I understand how this economy works. And I'm going to use the skill I learned in 25 years in business. And by the way, took those skills and helped turn around Olympics. And took those skills and became the governor of a state. And by the way, a conservative governor of a state. And I worked together with Democrats. We were able to get the job done by doing some things I think you'd find pretty impressive. We balanced the budget every year for 4 years without raising taxes, even though at the beginning there was a $3 billion budget gap. So we had to cut back on spending. I came into office and didn't just slow down the rate of growth of spending. I cut spending. And then I also worked very hard to cut taxes. 19 times we cut taxes in our state. We also fought to have English immersion in our schools and got it. We drove our schools, we ranked #1 in the nation. I hear those cheers. I hope that's a stand, I'll bet. I was also proud of the fact that we were able to get highways and bottlenecks taken care of, so we were able to help rebuild our infrastructure. We had work that had to be done. I was a pro-life governor. I came down on the side of life on every issue that was brought to my desk. I also came down on the side of traditional marriage. I'm a conservative. Those conservative credentials, I believe, are desperately needed in Washington. I intend to bring them there. I intend, with your help, to do something very different than this president. He says he wants to fundamentally transform America. I want to transform America into something we wouldn't recognize. I want to restore to America the principles that made America the hope of the earth. And I will do that. Those principles, spoken of so clearly in the Declaration of Independence. Were they cheering for you in there? Yeah. Those principles, when the Declaration of Independence said this, the founders said that we were endowed by our Creator with our rights. Not the state, not the king, but the Creator gave us our rights. And among those rights were life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We are free in this nation to pursue happiness as we choose, not limited by the circumstance of our birth or where we live, not limited by government. We are a nation that seeks freedom and seeks opportunity. People came here for hundreds of years seeking those freedoms. It's what's made us who we are economically. And as I watch this president, he's chipping away at our economic freedoms and putting in peril the very foundation of America's greatness. I will restore those freedoms. I will restore not just our liberties, but also our economic freedoms. And by doing so, help restore the greatest economy in the history of the earth. I love America. I love the principles upon which it was founded. I'm convinced that if we come together and elect someone who understands how this country works, that we'll keep America as it's always been, the hope of the earth. Thank you so much.